Fortune Most Powerful Women. This is a real treat because we've been trying to get Carolyn McCall to come to this event since this is our 4th Most Powerful Women International in London. We finally got her. Thank you very much for coming, Carolyn.
Thank you.
And the really special treat about this is that there was a very big story, a very positive profile about Carolyn in the New York Times today. I don't know, how many of you saw it? Not that many people. You know who else didn't see it yet? Carolyn, which actually very impresses me because it shows how much you're all about the work. But I'm going to give you a little bit of background on Carolyn before we start. She is the 3rd woman CEO of a FTSE 100 company. And she came in 2010 into a company that was in chaos financially and culturally. And over these 5 years, she has doubled revenues, produced record profits the last 4 years, growing profits, record stock price, and serious catch up with the #1 budget airline in Europe, which is Ryanair, whose CEO, by the way, seriously dissed her when Carolyn came over into the airline industry for the first time to try this turnaround. She moved to EasyJets from a completely different industry. Carolyn had spent 24 years at the Guardian Media Group, where she started as a research planner, and she rose over those 24 years to be CEO. So how on earth did you decide to move from a quarter-of-a-century media career into the airline industry?
Okay, so I did 20 years at The Guardian and The Observer, and I'd say that experience for me was absolutely vital in anything I chose to do, because it was changing a lot. Media was changing, so it stayed. There were some brilliantly easy years, actually, in media, as I was kind of finding my feet. And then it started to get more and more difficult, as many of you will know. And there was this whole thing called digital and the internet, and what did it do to classified revenue? And that was fantastic for me because I was right at the sharp end of all of that. So in 1993, I set up a website called RecruitNet when no one was really working on the internet. And I worked with Wired magazine, and we launched it in the UK. And so I got this amazing experience. So it kind of fast-tracked me in lots of ways. We bought The Observer, which is a Sunday newspaper, and I had to work very closely with a team of people merging those two papers. It was an incredibly good experience. I think I wouldn't have gone to EasyJet had I not then done the group CEO job. Okay. So I went from being CEO of The Guardian and The Observer, which was a very media-oriented job, as I've described, to actually running a group of companies, all in the media sector, but they were 7 diverse businesses. There was radio, there was a bit of TV, there was Auto Trader magazine, which is a used car magazine, which we changed totally into a digital version. There was regional newspapers. So it was a group of companies.
Yes.
And that gave me, I think, a lot of corporate finance experience. We did some acquisitions and a sale. So I got a lot more experience of a different world doing that 4 years. And I think that's probably why I got a phone call about EasyJet.
And did you ever envision yourself moving out of the media industry?
Not really, to be honest. I mean, a guy called, I call him a guy, but I mean, Mervyn Davis, who was, I sat on the Tesco board with, who ended up doing where he was trade minister for a while here. He was a fantastic mentor to me because he had been saying to me for some time, why are you sticking to media? Why don't you try and do something else? And I was saying, because I like media. I really like it. I love what I'm doing. And he said, but you could love something else. So he was one of the first people that kind of pointed out to me that I could, that the world was broader, actually. Yeah.
And did the fact that EasyJet was in such dire shape in 2010, did that attract you or make you almost not take the job?
Okay, so first thing I would say is I'm not a turnaround expert. That's not what I'm in business for. You know, I just think I don't like that kind of label, if you like, because firstly, I did my due diligence. I'm a researcher by background, so I think anyone with a research background doesn't go into anything without researching and doing due diligence. I did loads of due diligence. I talked to loads of people. I had no idea operationally EasyJet was in the state it was in. I knew some of the issues that there were. I knew some of the more corporate issues with shareholder, with brand license. There were all sorts of things. So they had been as honest, I think, as they could be with me. But what they didn't know on the board, on the PLC board, was quite how difficult things had become operationally. So I didn't know that until I walked into the company.
But I read that when you were being recruited, you were the only candidate or the only top candidate who actually asked to talk to the operations managers. So you knew something walking in.
No, so I asked to see the operations director. And the reason for that was I think you can't work for a highly operational company and not know what's going on in the operation. So that was part of my due diligence. But of course, the operations director was, you know, he was overseeing an operation that was kind of going down.
Right.
And that's the last thing he was going to tell me. I mean, but he did tell me. He gave me a very good insight into what really needed to be done. So I said to him, look, just tell me, as an incoming CEO, whether it's me or anybody else, what are the 3 things that need to be done in EasyJet? And he said the first thing is you have to regain the customer's trust, because we've lost our customers, because we've cancelled and been late and not been very reliable. The second thing is we've got to get back our own people. He said we have treated them really badly over the last 2 years. We've taken decisions that have impacted them, and they really don't like it. And the third thing is you have to get a team of people together, because he just said we're a very dislocated, dysfunctional team. And I remember walking away thinking, I can do that. I just thought, you know, those are 3 things I do know something about.
Good.
You know, so that gave me the confidence to go in and do something.
And then you walk in and you find out things are worse than you had imagined.
Well, then I walked in and I found that actually it was the operation. He was absolutely right. Those were the 3 really big strategic issues for the company. But actually, fundamentally, if you don't have a really strong operation, you don't have anything to build on. It's like building on quicksand. I mean, I could have come in and said, we need to be really nice to our customers. We need to change our processes around cabin bags. We need to, you know, we could have done, but it would have been like quicksand. It would have just disappeared, because if you're not punctual, if you're not reliable, and you can't be efficient, because, you know, EasyJet is all about efficiency, then you don't really have a foundation within which to build. Another good example of that is we've done very, very well with the business passenger, and that's a very clear strategy. But in the first 18 months, even though I had the thought of doing the business passenger, you couldn't implement it, because if you're a business passenger, you want punctuality. First and foremost, you want a good schedule and you want punctuality. So that I realized then that so I spent my first probably 8 months, actually 6 to 8 months, doing only 2 things: being in the operation every day and getting the right people in the right jobs to lead the organization.
So EasyJet's customer satisfaction ratings and ratings on on-time arrivals and departures have improved dramatically. The other thing that Carolyn has done brilliantly is focus more on the business traveler, but that's really interesting that you didn't do that second thing until you got the first things right. So how do you get the first things right? What are the keys to that?
So I think on the operation, it's just you have to be highly organized and highly disciplined, and it is like a military operation. So we have hundreds of flights, thousands of flights every day. and we're working in congested airports. I mean, I'll just give you an example of that. One of our investors, one of our top investors, I started doing a daily ops meeting. We now have, that meeting still stands. It's a 9:30 meeting every day where the key people right around the network dial in, and we have what happened yesterday, what's happening tomorrow, what's the week looking like, what are the trouble spots, et cetera, et cetera. And Tom came into this meeting, and we just operated as we would normally operate without knowing he was there. And as we went out, he said, "Oh my God, Carolyn, what
This
awful..."
is Tom.
No, well, don't worry who it was, but it was an investor. And he said, "Oh my God, it's an awful day. What are you going to do?" And I went, "That is a really not a bad day. That is an average day." And he was like, "Really?" And I was going, "Honestly, that is what happens every day in an airline. You're never, ever going to get everything running perfectly. It just can't happen. There's either a bit of weather somewhere, there's going to be a tech issue somewhere, there's always going to be something. And it has an impact on everything. So actually what you're doing all the time is just grinding out efficiency. You're just trying to make yourself as efficient as possible so that when something goes wrong, as it will, you are able to recover quickly all the time. You could swap aircraft quickly, you can get crew out quickly, you can make it as invisible to the passenger as it is possible to be.
How many of your direct reports did you replace?
Okay, so I haven't thought about this. So I promoted, I parted company with the ops director and the commercial director within about a 6-month period, and promoted 2 people. So I promoted someone from within to be the ops director, and I promoted someone from within to be, I changed the commercial job to 2 people. So promoted a couple, brought in 2 or 3 people, and then moved into other roles a couple of people.
Okay.
So it was a combination of bringing in, promoting up, and promoting laterally.
Did you ever have a moment where you thought, "Oh my God, what have I gotten myself into?"
So my CFO and I started on the same day, and he came from the music business. He was in at airline, and I do remember on the 4th day, we just kind of we just put our heads in our hands. We looked at each other because it was all open plan, and we have kind of quite small desks, and we sat next to each other like this, and we just went like this. I said, "What have we done?" And he said, "Yeah, I know." I said, "Yeah, but we're on the right side of structural change." And it's a really important thing, that. And he went, yeah, no, it's a good business. And we, for the first year or 16 months, 18 months, we did have to keep reminding ourselves as a senior executive team how good the business model is. Because if you lost sight of that, you might have lost a bit of hope. But actually we didn't. We just realized that, European aviation is, as we've predicted, changing dramatically, where low fares and good service going hand in hand with a formidable network, which we have, is the only way to go. That is the winner. That is going to be European aviation. It is not going to be, legacy carriers are not going to be able to sustain what they do in the short-haul market. Now, they've got fantastic businesses, long-haul, and that is where their focus will lead. It will not be about short-haul aviation. So when you remind yourself how efficient you are, how much potential there is to continue to grow, it's a growth business. If you could get things right, we knew there was a lot of potential in the airline.
Fortune did a story recently about how often there is an inverse correlation between profitability in the airline industry and customer satisfaction. American and United are among the airlines with the largest profits and highest margins, I guess, but have among the lowest customer satisfaction ratings. Delta has walked the line quite well. Does that make sense to you?
Well, I think I think America is different to Europe, and we're always looking to America for kind of similarities. But actually what's happened in America is there's been a huge amount of consolidation. And literally those 4 companies that you kind of referred to, 3 out of 4, they're worth $20 billion each. right? They're massive, massive conglomerates now. That's quite different, I think, to what you have in Europe, where you still have, you don't have Chapter 11 in Europe. So companies don't kind of fold and then rise up like phoenixes with different structures. Basically, what has to happen is someone else has to come in and buy them out, or they collapse, or they merge. So consolidation takes an awful lot longer in Europe. And so actually the only companies making profit in Europe are those that have a low-cost operating model and do low fares.
Interesting.
Now, I believe that if you're not good with customers, you will never be as good. You will never make as much profit as you should, because actually they have a choice. So they will always choose someone who's nice to them, right? And I don't just mean nice in a kind of soppy way. I mean, they want things to be made easy for them. You know, they genuinely want to know that you're there if things go wrong. They want to know that, you know, if something's happened to their families, that their families are safe and that you're going to take care of them, you're going to recover them, you know, in some way. And that trust, I think, with customers is incredibly important. And you can lose it very quickly, and it takes quite a long time to regain. So I do think at the bedrock of any healthy business, it's not just about short-term profitability. If it's about long-term profitability, then good customer care. It doesn't have to be gold-plated. I don't think anybody expects EasyJet to be gold-plated. They expect you to be friendly, helpful, and get you to places on time and efficiently. They don't expect anything else. And so if we can deliver that expectation, they'll always come back to us.
So we all know that, we all believe that customer service is important for long-term success of any business. And another thing that's very important is employee satisfaction. And many of you probably saw last week this Glassdoor survey of employees voting on giving their CEOs of their companies ratings. Larry Page won worldwide. Well, in the UK, the top 25 rated CEOs by employees, Larry Page was #1. Here is #5. The only woman on the list. Did that surprise you?
Well, I didn't know anything about it. I mean, it's a bit like the New York Times. I didn't know about this survey, and Paul, who you met, just sent me an email saying, this is great, you know. So I didn't know about it.
It is
I don't
great.
think it's something we kind of knew anything about.
Yeah. Who has a question? We have a couple of minutes left. If you could stand, and there are mics, mic handlers. Yes, over here. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought, no, I'm sorry. Yes, we have a question right here.
Hi, my name is Manuela Kasper-Claridge. I'm head of business of Germany's international broadcaster. I'd like to know how you judge the efforts of established airlines like Lufthansa to imitate your business model. Do you think they are a danger for your business model?
I don't think they're a danger to the business model, but I think all competition is a threat. So I think there's a difference between having competition, which clearly, if Lufthansa is creating or trying to be more low cost in the subsidiaries that they're creating, and it could be German Wings or Eurowings or whatever wings they're calling it now. I don't mean to be funny, but I mean, they have changed their mind quite a lot about what they want to do. I mean, that's competition. You know, it's not the model. They can't copy the EasyJet model. It is too difficult. They would have to change their entire fleet. They would have to change all of their crew. They would have to change their seat density, and they would have to restructure. It's impossible for them to get into the airports right across Europe that EasyJet are in #1 and #2 positions. So they would have to fundamentally re-engineer everything that they do in order to be a low-cost operating model. So even when they try to be lower cost, that's good for them. It's more competitive, but it's not threatening the fundamental model.
We're going to take one more question. Jude, up here, wait for the mic. Can we have a mic up here, please? Hard to get
hard
through.
to see.
Yes.
I'm Jude Kellys, I'm the Artistic Director of the South Bank Centre. And I want to make an analogy in order to ask you the question. So the South Bank Centre is the third biggest visitor attraction in the country, and it's 28 million visitors. And my job as the Artistic Director is to think about art and how we make people love it and feel it belongs to them. But a bit like flying, you know, they feel much more likely to fall in love with art if the toilets are clean, and if they get a good cup of coffee, and if the queues aren't, you know, too big, etc., etc., etc. And I'm interested to know that when you decided that you were going to start with operations and that grinding necessity, even though you could have been loftier, you could have been doing loftier things, did you move on to be loftier and leave somebody in your place who was as forensic and as passionate and as kind of driven as you, or are you still doing that too?
No, I'm definitely not. I mean, I now have a fantastic team, and you know, my ops director is, you know, he's an ex-pilot, but he's very commercial and he is forensic. I mean, detail is what he loves, and he's like a military commander. So actually, I mean, he is, and he does that, and he's very black and white actually, and that is what works often in operations. That's what you need, and it's allowed, of course, after that initial period, it's allowed me to get involved in much more of the brand, the positioning of the brand, loyalty, customers. I'll tell you a very quick anecdote when I knew that I could step out of the operation, if you don't mind, if I've got time, is pilots are fantastic. They are essential to an airline, obviously. They're a bit like your artists, right? They are essential. But they do have an opinion about everything. And often their opinion is right, okay? So I got an email, and I was getting a load of emails from captains saying what needed fixing, what needed to be done more of and less of, and, you know. I got an email at Easter from a captain in Charles de Gaulle, and he said, Dear Carolyn, he was a British captain in Charles de Gaulle, Dear Carolyn, no, this is not another moany email, you'll be pleased to know. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for a stable roster. Thank you for letting me have some time with my family for the first time in years. This means the airline is on the up. Thank you very much. Yours sincerely, Charles de Gaulle. P.S. Crew food is still shit. And at that point, I honestly did know that we were doing the right thing for the operation, things were going well, and I could actually start really concentrating on the other bits of what you've described.
And she still got rated number 5 by employees in the UK. So, Carolyn, our time's up. Congratulations. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope this isn't the last time.
No, it won't be the last time. No, thank you very much.
Thank you.